as we've known, is that they're 3-5 in games against top 25 teams, and or there's 3-4 rather. And we've shown that they can compete with the best of the best. They beat Baylor, number 20, and then held just a 1 point. West Virginia to losing by 1 point in the semifinals, who ended up winning the Big 12 championship, as you mentioned. So I was incredibly encouraged by the Buffs' performance this weekend.
Yeah, and just looking a little bit broader, they earned it. They earned their spot in the NCAA tournament in March Madness. They entered Kansas City a little bit on the bubble. They had been on the bubble all season, and especially after those losses to Utah and BYU, they were, really right there. Like, if they had lost to Kansas, we could be having a completely different conversation. But they gutted it out against Kansas, the glass floor and all, and then against Baylor, really showed their, how they can compete against the best of the conference, control that game wire to wire.
Yeah, no, that Buffs team we saw show up against Baylor, that's a March team right there. I think, the Kansas game was obviously necessary to keep their March Madness hopes alive, but Baylor solidified it. That got them in right there. And I'm excited to see them keep that energy going forward.
Well, I think if you needed to hear anything about how someone feels about how good this Colorado Buffaloes team is, just watch Baylor's head coach post-game press conference, because she was quite animated. It showed you just how good of a performance, especially on the defensive side, that Colorado had in that game. But Jake, they played 3 games over a span of 3 days, 3 games in 3 days. Did you learn anything new last week that you hadn't learned already this season?
I don't know if I'd say something new. Something that we've kind of known is Jade Masagayo. The Buffs don't need her to be great to be great. Jade Masagayo came in with a lot of high expectations into the season. She's kind of been wishy-washy at moments, but she's also rose to the occasion a lot of the times. And she wasn't great, to be honest with you, in this tournament, right? She had 12 fouls in 3 games. She fouled out twice and still played 24 minutes, which is about her season average. And she only scored 18 total points across the 3 games. So I was a little discouraged when that averages out to 6 a game, where she averages 11 across the entire season. So I was a little discouraged by Jade, and I'll talk about that a little later. But they don't need Jade to be great.
Personally, no. I didn't see anything. I didn't learn anything, if we're just going off the prompt. But I saw that all the players lived up to what they do. You saw Zai making those mid-range. She was a warrior, playing through all those minutes. AD locking up people. Dez locking up and playing well in the clutch moments. And Jade, she had a rough offensive tournament, but she really played well on defense. Logan Greer as well. So these players, I think there were some extremely big steps forward in terms of clutch play, because we saw down the stretch those fourth quarters, they started to get a little shaky. There seemed to be kind of a barometer of pressure that they struggled with, but they really met it, except until those final moments, West Virginia.
Yeah, just to echo what everybody else has said, I don't think I learned anything new. We've always known CU can show up in big moments. They just got to keep that consistency. But yeah, no, they played as well as they always can. Like, their defense showed up in this tournament. So nothing new, but yeah, it's just consistency that matters from here on out.
Well, guys, what I learned is that this team, again, responded to the occasion, right? Jake, you mentioned it. A loss to BYU, a loss to Utah. It's like 2 games they were probably figuring they were probably supposed to be winning those games. Coming out against Kansas and really being aggressive, but also when it comes to that win against Baylor, that's what really impressed me, and also probably the committee, and maybe even moved them up a full seed line when it comes to the NCAA tournament bracket. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Jake, if you had to pick one player from this team last week, who was your most valuable player in Kansas City?
Ziana Walker. I mean, her experience being in that semifinals game showed. I mean, she knew what it takes to play 4 games in 4 days as a K-State Wildcat last year, and I think that her experience learning that in Manhattan and what it takes to win games in Kansas City showed. I mean, she had 13.7 points per game in the tournament. It was incredibly encouraging. Harrison, you mentioned the minutes. I was incredibly impressed. Yeah, absolutely insane from Ziana Walker.
I'm going to go with a little bit of an underrated player. I have a feeling that the backcourt played great, and I will give all the credit in the world to Zai and Des. But Logan Greer really showed up. As a freshman, she got that honor for Big 12 All-Freshman Team, and then she had 4 blocks against, I believe it was Baylor, where she had really great defensive plays. She had that moment we'll probably see in the top plays on the live show later. Big and one layup. She had been figuring out her jumper all season, but in those moments where they needed jumpers, she would just have the confidence to rise and take them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the law firm of Walker and Wooten. I think they really showed up, especially in that Baylor game. They combined for 41 points. They just were really impressive creating their own opportunities, and they really powered CU's offense when maybe it wasn't getting as much production from other places. So they really brought that energy, and yeah, they were great.
Well, when there's a combination of, again, that guard play and also Logan Greer, I think has really come along recently, Harrison. And you're kind of seeing just how bright of a future she can have for this Colorado team, especially with the departure of Jaden Masagayo coming up. She's probably going to be really filled into that role next year in a big way. And so it's good to see her, scoring some big-time points. But, Jake, against West Virginia, CU's down by 1. Harrison and I will talk a little bit. I guess you'll see the play a little bit later in the film breakdown. But are you a little bit concerned or disappointed in some of these late game moves recently? We saw a possession in Utah a couple weeks ago where they didn't get a shot off. It's the same that happened against West Virginia when they were trying to tie the game or take it into overtime. Are you disappointed, and do you think this is going to be something that CU fans should be worried about, or is it just a one-off?
Worried, I'm not sure, but I look again, as I mentioned earlier, Jade Masagayo, her just performance across the entire games, fouling out twice in late game situations. CU needs her. And I look back to the TCU game, feels like fool's gold. She hit that huge and one to win the game. And then she fumbles the ball against Utah, and she gets the ball stolen against West Virginia. And these are heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
And you guys are wincing down there. They're heartbreaking. And I'm worried about Jade Masagayo because it felt like fool's gold for J.R. Payne. And I think she sees the flash. She goes to Jade, who's supposed to be her star, and she's just not maybe built for that moment.
Yeah, you talked about JR going to Jade. I think there were several questionable decisions in those final moments, such as different rotations and things like that. Anel Dutat not being in for more than 23 minutes. JR said she was tired, was it?
Yeah.
But everybody's tired. It's the semifinals of the Big 12 championship. These titles don't grow on trees. And so AD needed to play some more, and then that last play probably should have been drawn up a little bit better. If that's a do-or-die play, you need more options than just Des flying out to the three-point line and then just go to Jade and hope she gets fouled, probably. That was probably the plan if we saw what happened against TCU and then Utah. So while I'm disappointed in some of those decisions, I think the team took a step forward in terms of how they play in the clutch, because you saw against Baylor, they just never let them get back into that game. They tried. As hard as they pushed. The fourth quarter, they went on a little run, but they never got closer than 6. Kansas, the same. They tried to just piece something together. But CU had shown up in the clutch in the past during the season, but then, like we said, with Utah and BYU, big shot to their confidence, but they restored it again, in a very interesting situation, I would say, against some really tough teams.
Yeah, going off that, I think we've seen some incremental improvement in those late game situations. Obviously, like a little bit of backtracking there against West Virginia. I think the situational awareness wasn't all there. Yeah, that last play, just to completely miss the opportunity to even get a shot off, that's a rough way to go out. And earlier they were going for threes as the clock wound down when they didn't need a 3.
Yeah.
So I think there was just a lot of things that could have been improved, and I don't think it's something we need to be worried about. I think it's something they're going to look at the film and maybe dissect and hopefully go off, see what they could have done better there, and just learn from that in the future.
Yeah, and exactly like you said, Lyle, I think this probably could be a really good learning experience, especially when you're going into the NCAA tournament where you're going to be facing, competition that's closer to your level. I'm not saying Kansas isn't close to Colorado's level, but you're going to be playing a team better than Kansas and probably on the same level of Baylor's competency in the first and second round when you're talking about maybe a 2 or a 3 seed in the bracket. But again, disappointed for them to not even get a shot off. I think that's what hurts me the most. Like, if you're a Colorado fan out there, is like they didn't even get a shot off, right? Like, that's happened twice now in the past 3 weeks. So again, disappointed, but when you take a step back in retrospect, a pretty successful week, like you were saying, Jake, for Colorado to make Selection Sunday a little less anxiety-provoking for Colorado fans out there. But we're going to take a quick break because we're going to talk to this guy's package about the talk of the town this past week, which was the new LED court in the Big 12 tournament at Kansas City.
We're here at the CU Rec Center. While there are no glass courts nearby, if you watch the Big 12 tournament, you might have noticed a bunch of players slipping.
It's very different. Personally, I don't like it. It was really slippery. But other than that, it's really cool.
I mean, it was cool. I think it's a cool idea. I will say it was a little slip in some areas, but I mean, you kind of got used to it.
At seemingly every break and play, there were several people out there mopping up the court for every slip and fall, more so than on an average hardwood game.
To end the half, Jane Wooten slips. That was a momentum play that could have gone our way that did not. It went the opposite way. Just those little things that take some time to adjust to.
I was sliding a little bit. It's really cool. It's really cool looking, but it definitely is a little bit of a different feel. You kind of have to get used to, but I feel like second half kind of got more used to it. So
Even across 2 days in the men's tournament, the players have noted the surface change.
It's slippery. It's the lights and stuff cause Kamari to get a migraine, and yeah, it's a bad floor. They shouldn't bring it back, if you want my honest opinion.
Still, the ASB glass floor has received praise from players and coaches alike. And it marks a historic moment, as it's the first time the court has been utilized for official competition in the United States.
In pre-game introductions, the whole court being lit up in
cool.
BYU blue and their names being the whole court, I thought that was as cool as a thing I've seen as far as pre-game introductions.
it was just amazing to be a part of. Not everybody gets to play on glass courts, and just to be a part of that was an amazing experience.
While some players and coaches note the environment and the inviting graphics when players make threes, there is a noticeable difference in the surfaces.
I'm here on this concrete hard floor, and I feel a lot more grounded than I did in Kansas City. I feel a lot more firm and sure about my step as I make my moves with this mini little basketball. And I'm sure for the players, that kind of got into their head as they thought about the immersive experience that the Big 12 offered this year.
It is different. I mean, it's cool that it's historic and we're the first to play on it. I think it made us a bit timid just being the first time, and it's a different feeling, and then we all have previous injuries that we're still working with, so it's kind of like you're in your head mentally about it because it's not the same as a regular court, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to compete out there.
Whether it's glass, hardwood, or concrete, the Big 12 has invested in this court as they pivot to the future.
The Big 12 is playing great basketball, right? But also it's added a lot more eyes to the Big 12, which is what we need. You know, we need the rest of the country to see, man, they are really good. Like the Big 12 is special. It's a different league.
It's like playing on a big iPad, so it's cool.
Well, guys, it's fair to say that everyone and their mother was talking about this LED court this past week. And again, it's featuring right now in the men's tournament. You saw a clip from a Kansas State player talking about the first couple of days on their experiences, because this is all new for all of them. But we're going to digress and get into the women's path into the NCAA tournament, because now it's all but secured after the win against a top 25 team against Baylor. Jake, putting this graphic on the screen soon. Right now, the women are standing 46 in the net. They picked up their second quad one victory against Baylor the other day. So when you look at, kind of what their body of work is right now, what stands out to you in their quadrant records?
Well, again, I think it's that quad one record. They've been good enough, it feels like, in quad one games, and quad two games even have kind of been friendly to them too. But I think it's the wins where they fell into the schedule, right? We talked about Kansas, and I think Lila, you mentioned it. That win against Kansas put them in, and then Baylor secured it. And I think losing to West Virginia by just 1 point kind of says to the committee, this team deserves to be here. Look, that could have been them up there cutting nets with, the way Maeve was shooting. I think Colorado did enough.
Yeah, no, you mentioned the margins of losses. Earlier in the season, that doesn't matter as much. I don't think the committee is going to look at a 1 point loss like a Montana State or how they battle against Louisville as hard as they look at the 1 point loss to West Virginia now. I think the committee is going to really take into account margin of loss, because the Big 12 is a lot of really tight teams that just battle every game. And yeah, like you said, they're in. They got that against Baylor. That truly solidified it. I think they would probably be in with Kansas, but I think what's big with the Baylor win is they probably got past the echelon to avoid a first 4 game. And they get one of the byes, and so they get a more favorable matchup. They don't have to play an extra game and be tired by the time if they get to the round of 32.
Yeah, no, I think the close games are what really matter. I think we've also seen that the committee really takes recency into account. So avenging that earlier loss in the season to Baylor in the tournament, that was a pretty big statement, because not only are they a top 25 team, it shows, I think, a lot of improvement on CU's end. And yeah, the close games are what matters, especially holding that close to a team like West Virginia, and they have a real shot of moving up into the top 16. So CU, even though they're not winning all of these games, they're up there, and I think the committee is going to recognize that.
Well, one thing I'll quickly add is you mentioned it was 3 wins against top 25 teams. It's technically 4 if you count Iowa State, who was ranked at the time of the game, and then those 3 wins have all come in a row.
Yep.
So the last 3 games up into West Virginia that they play against top 25 teams, all wins.
Yeah, and again, they were right there against West Virginia too, guys. And only, I think, the West Virginia championship game win over TCU probably makes that loss look even better now, especially because, again, 2 of those 6 quad 1 losses are to that West Virginia team that looks like one of the hottest teams in the country right now. But Jake, Harrison mentioned it earlier, they might have gotten out of that first 4 sectional, which will be very important when it comes to, again, if people are tired right now, it will help not play an extra game, quote unquote. But this team is going to probably be going to a venue that will be facing someone that is on their home court, if they win their first round matchup, that is. So agagan, 4-6 though on the road this season. Does that concern you? It maybe playing a road game in the second round for CU's chances to make a run here?
Slightly. I don't think it will, though. I know Colorado started off 0-5 on the road, but this is not the same team. You mentioned the record. They're, 4-1 then on the road since? So they've looked a lot better on the road, so I wouldn't say that is exactly worrying for me, but wherever they play, I mean, CU's not necessarily known for their attendance, so I think that Coach JR will have them in the right spot.
I'm not worried at all. They've proven they can do it before. Obviously, it was a much different team 2 years back on those back-to-back runs to the Sweet 16, but they went into teams' houses and dominated both times. They went to Duke and won it, and then Kansas State, where they were right on the edge of possibly being able to host, but then didn't. Took that chip on their shoulder and went out and beat Kansas State. So this is a team that's well coached to win in those hostile environments in the biggest moments, and I think they can definitely do it again.
Yeah, I agree. Like Jake said, I don't think this is a team that relies on their fan base that much. And JR does have experience coaching her teams in hostile environments in big moments. So I think CU is good at rising to the occasion. And, I mean, March is where the magic happens. So I don't think we can really go off of previous records here.
Get some Mave magic.
Yeah.
Well, guys, you guys already kind of answered my next question, which was the fact of, is the Sweet 16 berth kind of possible? So I'm just going to move on to my other bullet point, which is recently Colorado's defense, once again showed that they are one of the most elite defenses in the country in the Big 12 tournament. But when they struggle sometimes is when they have to score a lot of points, maybe get in a shootout. Sometimes, they actually haven't probably had many games because their defense has been so good. But Jake, I'll ask you this question. I know it hasn't held them back too much this season so far, but they are shooting just 27% from deep this season, 3-point lane. Desiree Wooden's really their only effective or reliable scorer from range, and even sometimes then she just kind of chucks up shots every now and then. Do you think that could limit them, especially in a first-round game when, say, an opponent hits 8 or 9 threes?
I mean, sure, if you're giving up 8 or 9 threes, but I think what is more important is the defense. Colorado is built to be a defensive team, and Coach Payne has mentioned that her team loves playing defense. And here's a number. They've held 5 teams to their lowest point total this season, and 2 of them have come in the past week, West Virginia and Kansas.
Yeah.
And they've held 3 teams, an additional 3 teams, within 1 possession of their lowest point total. So Colorado is built to be that defensive team, to frustrate opponents who are used to scoring a lot and shooting 9 threes and a half, if that's what we want to say. I think Colorado is built well. They're built for their defense, and they only need to be good enough on their shot selection.
The biggest part of that defense, and why I think it's more likely that they become defensive games rather than shootouts, is their length and their athleticism. This Colorado team under Payne hasn't always been great at defending the 3-point line. They've always been good on the interior because they would have size. They had Quay Millers, Aaron Von Lays, but what has really made the difference this season has been their ability to defend the 3-point line and au top at the very precipice of that, at the forefront. And Desiree Wooden, Ziana Walker, great perimeter defenders, 2-way guards that they have. They don't usually have that type of 2-way guard impact. I mean, it's Sherrod, but that doesn't, it varies from year to year. So to have 2 guards you can have like that, and then the length of Greer and Dutat, and then you have Jade Masagai, who's no slouch on the perimeter as well. So I think those 5 have been crucial for keeping teams off the 3-point line.
I agree. Yeah, we have a very mobile team right now, and so I think their defense, that is always the focus of their games. Even in that West Virginia game, both teams horrible shooting, but those were 2 teams that stake their pride on defense, and I think we saw that. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. That is where CU shines against those big teams. So, like you said earlier, if they are giving up like 8 or 9 threes, not great. I don't think that they can do that and win, but I think their defense is going to hold teams And so they don't need to make up for that on the offensive end necessarily. They just need to play their game.
That's right, Lila. And one thing I've really been impressed on the defensive end too this season is I know everyone talks about the offensive rebound ability of Dutat and some other players, but this team doesn't give up many offensive rebounds. So when teams are missing shots, they're grabbing the board, they're pushing in transition, especially now with the combination of Wooten and Walker. They've got a lot of confidence going off a miss, especially when if it's a long miss from the 3-point line. So they don't give up offensive rebounds, which doesn't lead to second chance points, which doesn't lead to as many points at the end of the game. So this defense has been really good. Like I said, top 25 in defensive efficiency this season at 24th in the nation. So hopefully for Colorado fans out there, they can take this efficiency into March Madness. But Harris and I are going to talk about that West Virginia game in just a second, a 48-47 loss to the Mountaineers. It came down to the end. Here's how it unfolded in Kansas City.
Welcome on into this week's edition of Film Breakdown alongside Harrison Simeon. We're going to take a look, deep breakdown of Colorado's 48-47 loss in the Big 12 tournament semifinals. Harrison, the Buffs struggled to defend, especially Jordan Harrison on the perimeter. Let's roll this first clip, though.
Yeah, the Buffs had a pretty good time defending West Virginia. I mean, you just mentioned the final score. It was the lowest scoring first half in Big 12 semifinal history. But in that first half, Jordan Harrison of West Virginia caused all sorts of headaches. You just look at this play here. They got a little set going for her. West Virginia's going to get a screen. You have Anna Dutat, who was shadowing her all night, but they got a perfectly placed screen right here, so little miscommunication just to set up Jordan Harrison. Wide open three, easy points right there, and a very tight-knit start to the game. And then we go instantly to what she can also do. She's really, really freaking fast. In transition, Ziana Walker, one of the best defenders, all Big 12 defender, can't keep up with her on the back pedal. So really tough for her to, really tough for the Buffs to guard her at all in the first half.
And Harrison, in a game where really good looks were limited, right? Because again, we mentioned that low score in line, and there wasn't really good chances from either teams. A layup on the other end, a lot of fast break points from West Virginia in transition. Jordan Harrison was a big catalyst of that. But now we'll take a look at Colorado on offense.
Yeah, we're fast forwarding all the way to the fourth quarter, as CU struggled in the second quarter and third offensively. But at the very end, they got a little spark, and they found the lead on the back of Ziana Walker, who played 39 minutes after playing almost all of the game the day prior on a back-to-back-to-back. She was a warrior in the semifinals and just finding shots anywhere she can get. So just rhythm jumper right here on the West Virginia defender to give CU the lead.
Well, and Harrison, if Ziana Walker continued to perform like that in the NCAA tournament, this Buffs team could be a real threat because the combination of her and Wooden, earlier in the season especially too, was very strong. But now Ziana Walker's really trying to get hot back playing in Kansas earlier last week.
Yeah, and you mentioned Wooten. She struggled up until the fourth quarter of that game, had 9 points, including a go-ahead three that has the Buffs up with, now down to the final few possessions. And now you look at a mistake she makes, though. As it's a great job, Kiara Wheeler, underrated player for West Virginia. She had a bunch in the fourth quarter as well. She really helped them down the stretch to respond to Colorado's run. So they've got her back and down, and because of the presence she's had in the fourth quarter, they don't want Logan Greer going up against her. Logan Greer, skinny. So they want to send this double, and they send it right here, but Wheeler does a great job finding Gia Cook wide open for this go-ahead three to fire back after the Buffs took the lead.
Well, for me, Harrison, too, you look at that scoreline before that shot. Situational awareness is something that plagued this team late in this game because, again, you're up to the last thing you want to give up is a wide open three-pointer, right? I actually, if I'm J.R. Payne, I live with that layup. If it gets inside, I know instinctively Desiree Wooden wants to bring that double team, and usually, 8 times out of 10, she probably shuts that play down, but they're obviously giving West Virginia the lead going into the last part of the game.
Yeah, I'll probably touch on it more during the show, but I think J.R. Payne was a little bit out-coached in this fourth quarter. You look at this next play, and you have 23 seconds on the shot clock. Yeah, 25. This should be just milk the clock all the way down, get a shot late. You're down one, but you still have a chance. Maybe take one with, 10 to 8 seconds left. You get a rebound. But speaking of rebounds, where's Anna Dutat on this play? It's Mae Mackerlane. It's 3 guards. It's not the best lineup you want if you want to get a second chance at a score, especially if what we see happens is we get it to Jade Masagayo, who has a paint touch, but she goes, there's still 18 seconds left on the shot clock. She has plenty of time to get an easier shot, to maybe kick out, reset, anything, except a contested basket. That's the last thing you want if you're Colorado. And the last thing you want is the lack of rebounding on the floor. And Wheeler comes down with a really nice board once again, gets fouled, and we're going to get to the last play now.
Yeah, and again, before we get to that, Harrison, for me, right, Maeve, she didn't turn the ball over all game, which, was good on her end. But at the same time, on that last play offensively, when you need a bucket, all those West Virginia defenders know that she's not a threat shooting the ball. That's why someone can kind of jump off her. And, again, Jade looked flustered a little bit all night. But that is one problem for me. Talk about being outcoached, situational awareness. She should not be on the floor in that situation. But we'll go to the last play now.
Well, now they have AD in, and I think that does work because you at least have 5 players that can score on the floor at the same time. But the play here still just falls a little bit short. You have what I believe looks to be setting something up for Desiree Wooten because she comes out here. But Logan Greer is staring down Jade Masagayo here, going for like that TCU game-winning shot. They tried against Utah. It didn't work. They go for it once again. And Jade just kind of looks down at her dribble here, and a huge heads-up play by Jordan Harrison. Desiree Wooten is 40 feet from the basket, so doesn't even have to worry about her with 1 second on the shot clock. Instantly just goes behind for the steal, and that's the game.
Well, there's a reason why Jordan Harrison was the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. She also won Most Outstanding Performer in that tournament, as West Virginia actually went on to beat TCU in the championship game. But, again, Colorado's defense played okay, but when you score 47 points, you're probably not going to win many good games against top opponents like the Mountaineers. So some struggles for Colorado defensively as well. They'll look to shore those up before they go dancing in March. But thank you so much, Harrison, for joining me this week for Film Breakdown, and we'll send you guys back to the desk.
Well, thank you so much, Harrison, for breaking down that game very vividly for us, and not something that J.R. Payne and Colorado is going to want to remember, but something that could be a building block going forward into the March Madness tournament. But Jake, I want to transition to the men's side of things because right now that same conference tournament is going on in Kansas City. Houston is trying to defend their crown. The quarterfinals begin tomorrow. Who do you think takes the crown?
Well, I was going to say Arizona if you asked me this last week, but after their showing at the CU Event Center, I'm a little discouraged by the Wildcats. I'm going to go for Houston. I think they're going to defend it. But Arizona could absolutely be in the mix.
I'm with you there. Houston has a really well-built team, and they're the defending champion. They're a slightly different team than last year, but they still got Emmanuel Sharp, and they've got Kingston Flemings now, who's been an electric guard as a freshman.
I mean, both of those. There's a lot of teams that could take it. Obviously, Arizona, definitely a heavy favorite, but I'm going to throw in a little hot take into the mix. I'd say Kansas has a decent shot. I mean, they're in Kansas City, and I could definitely see Jayhawk fans turning that place into a home court for the Jayhawks.
Well, guys, so far this season, Arizona has been, constantly that top echelon of the Big 12, but I'll throw out a team, too, that's won actually 2 games in the past 2 days. BYU has looked very dominant. They beat West Virginia by 20 points today, and they won the game by however many they did yesterday. But AJ DeBansa looks like one of the best players in the month of March so far. I know it's only been 4 games, but he's been electric for BYU. And when you have a guy like that who could be a potential number 1 pick in the NBA draft, the sky's the limit for the Cougars. I think they could make a run. We'll see if they can do that tomorrow in the quarterfinals. But transitioning back over to the women's side of things, guys, again, bracketology can say all they want, but what really matters is the seed line that comes out in the selection show on Sunday. Jake, it seems like they've kind of positioned themselves out of the first 4 appearance, but what seed line, if you had to pick one, do you think CU gets? And also, I'll add in there, who would you like to see them play?
I think they're going to get a 10. I think that win against Baylor and then playing West Virginia, the eventual Big 12 champs, close, deserves them a 10. I mean, looking at the 5 seeds and the 2 seeds, or the 7 seeds and the 2 seeds, right now they're projected to play Georgia and Duke. There's a lot of good stories from around the nation, whether that's LSU is projected to be a 10 seed, who JR has beat Kim Mulkey before, whether that's Iowa, where it is a completely different team, but getting revenge against a Sweet 16 loss a few years ago, or Duke, who they've also beat in the tournament. So I think there's a lot of seeds. If I had to choose one, I got to go with Duke.
I think it says it there. I'm not going to even mention it. 10 or 11, I think, is the good line. And I don't think they're totally out of the first 4 conversation yet. I think there's still a chance. It just depends on what the committee really values. All those predictions by Charlie Cream and The Athletic and everything, they're not spot on every year. But still, I think it's going to be a 10 or 11. And a team I'd like to see them play is Louisville. And I mentioned it earlier. They battled really hard when they played them in the regular season this year. 2nd game of the year, I believe. And last year in the CU Event Center also was up at halftime, had a really competitive showing against them before, but 2 times in a row now. In recent memory, they've lost, and they've fallen just short. That 4th quarter, they really struggled this last time against Louisville. And Louisville probably in that 3 seed range, so I think they'll probably get a chance if they end up as an 11 to get some revenge on the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, there are all some really great stories that they could possibly go into. I think revenge would be great, but I would be really interested in seeing them play Notre Dame. I think, they did a good job against Olivia Miles at TCU, and so seeing a very similar guard in Hannah Hidalgo, I think CU definitely has the capability to shut her down or at least make it a fun game.
Well, Lila, CU's defense was kind of like as reliable as Chipotle Al Pastor chicken against TCU late on, and they did shut down a little Olivia Miles to the extent that they could. But again, when it comes to Notre Dame and playing them there as well, but we'll see kind of what happens in the tournament. I would love to see them play LSU. I think Harrison Simeon would also love to see them play LSU because it's a kind of a shorter trip for him.
It would be for everybody.
It'd be a lot of miles.
It'd be pretty convenient, though.
I mean, we're hoping they get there.
Yeah.
The fear in her eyes when she hears Colorado's name.
I mean, the way Colorado came out in that Vegas game a couple of years ago, I don't think LSU was ready, and I don't think they would be now.
Well, guys, going to Baton Rouge would be a little bit of a less hazard than maybe going somewhere else like a Duke or somewhere that is a little bit hard for Harrison and Sandy Simeon to get to. But again, I digress. Jake, I want to hear a bold prediction from you. I know we did something about that on the Instagram story a bit earlier, but what do you think is going to happen in the NCAA tournament that might shock some people based on what you said?
Well, I laid into Jade Masagai a little bit earlier in the show, but I still have faith in her. I said it was some fool's gold. JR's buying it. I'm buying it. My boldest prediction is she's going to go 25-10-5 in the first round game or a second round game. I think she shows out, proves why she's one of the best forwards in the nation, and is a big anchor to this team. I mean, she did it in the Big 12 tournament last year. We know she's capable of it. 25-10-5 for Jade.
I think Desiree Wooten is going to show what she's been attempting to show. She's had some blips of it again in games like Iowa State and TCU, and it goes on and
any
on.
Game on a Sunday.
Yeah, any game on a Sunday, any big game against a ranked opponent. I think some of those teams we talked about them possibly playing have really good guards, like Malaysia Fulwiley, LSU, different teams like that. So I think Desiree Wooten is going to become a national name, a household name. And I think she's going to outplay one of those big guards they end up playing against.
I agree. I would love to see Desiree Wooten go up against Malaysia Fulwiley. I think that'd be a really fun matchup. I think that, law firm of Wooten and Walker. I said it before. I think they are a powerhouse, and they can definitely go off in big moments. But I would also love to see, as Jake said, Jade get her numbers back up. But Anael Dutau, she was posting really consistent numbers earlier in the season, and she's had flashes. She is very consistent off-ball presence for them, but I would love to see her get back into that offensive production.
Well, Dutaut's been just an absolute specimen when it comes to offensive rebound this season, right? And as someone from the extraterrestrial world, right? I mean, when it comes to Dutaut, she had the most offensive rebounds average in the Big 12 Conference this season. Been a little bit less aggressive on the glass recently, definitely to note in the Big 12 tournament as well. Hopefully, she can get back to her best because we know that best is very good. But now, Jake, the question everyone wants to know is, where does this season come to the end, come to the line for this team, and will they be alive when we come back from spring break, which would be at least making the Sweet 16?
I think that's the best case, is making the Sweet 16. I think the worst case is around a 32. I think they have it in them to win one game, and I think if they don't, that's considered a failure almost. Look at this team, how well they've played in close games. Unless it's a 1-point loss, I would call it a 1-2 point loss. I would call it a failure if they didn't get out the first round.
I think they're cutting down the nets. I'm just saying. I'll relax a
UConn
little bit. Yeah, UConn, May Mackerlane, they don't stand a chance. But I think realistically, round of 32 is, I think, what they can get to. I think Sweet 16 is possible. I think they have the ability to go into a team's house and really play well on the road. That they are a much better team on the road this year. They're never great on the road. But I think this time, as we mentioned earlier with the host sites, I don't think that'll be a factor one bit. So if they can overcome that, I think they can certainly make a run to the Sweet 16. But I think realistically, round of 32, you talk about the teams that made the Sweet 16 in the past, there is a little bit of a talent difference. They don't have a true, Jalen Sherrod, Frida Foreman, that team was perfectly built to make a run in March. This one is still somewhat figuring itself out, has been a little more inconsistent. So I'm going to go round 32.
Yeah, you know what? I think C is the dark horse in this moment. I think they're going to make a run all the way through. Not really. But I am going to take the optimist perspective. I think March is where the magic happens. Yes, they're a young team. They're still figuring themselves out. But I think there's so much fight and motivation in this team. And like I said, they stake their identity on defense. And I think that's what's really going to set them apart from these flashier teams. So I think Sweet 16 is a good goal, and I'm excited to see them get there.
Well, guys, it's been an incredible season so far for us here on SBS Basketball Live in the semester. And I just want to issue out a couple of thank yous before we head off air. First of all, to our producer for most of the semester, Nick, and also Zach for stepping in and directing today. Has been incredible. Kieran over there in audio, too. Thank you guys so much for your help in the control room, because that is what makes this show possible. And also to my left and right, Jake Chow, Harrison Simeon, and Lyle Nuttall. Signing off for the last time this semester. I'm your host, Shane Holcomb. Let's see how CU does in March this season, and you heard it here first.